There is a moment, quiet, almost invisible, when you realize the world has been watching not just your victories, but your fractures. Not to understand you, but to measure you. And in that moment, something within you shifts. You begin to see that every unguarded word, every exposed wound, has been handled by hands that did not always mean you well. So today I invite you into a different kind of strength, not the kind that denies your humanity, but the kind that protects it, the kind that knows when to feel deeply, yet stand firmly. Because this is not about becoming hard. It is about becoming wise enough to know that your strength deserves respect, not display. Strength is not the absence of pain. It never has been. Pain visits every life, uninvited and often unwelcome, carrying with it lessons we did not ask to learn. It arrives in quiet disappointments, in loud betrayals, in the spaces where something once whole begins to crack. To be strong is not to escape these moments, nor to pretend they do not exist. It is to stand in their presence without allowing them to define the shape of your spirit. There is a quiet mastery in learning how to hold your pain without letting it spill into every corner of your life. Not every hurt needs to be spoken aloud. Not every struggle needs to be seen. Some battles are meant to be fought within, where resilience is forged in silence and dignity is preserved in restraint. You begin to understand that your pain is real, but it is not your ruler. It does not get to dictate your worth, your reactions, or your future. When you master your pain, you do not become numb, you become intentional. You choose how to respond instead of reacting to every wound. You take a breath before you speak, you gather yourself before you fall apart, and in that pause, you reclaim your power. The world may never see the storms you have weathered, but it will feel the calm strength you carry because of them. There is a difference between being overwhelmed by pain and being shaped by it. One leaves you scattered, the other refines you. And though the process is not easy, though it asks more of you than you sometimes believe you can give, it is in this shaping that your true strength emerges. You begin to walk differently, not because life has become easier, but because you have become steadier. Do not misunderstand this strength as hardness. You are not meant to close your heart or silence your emotions completely. You are meant to guide them, to hold them with care, to decide where they belong and where they do not. Your feelings are valid, but they are not commands. They are signals, and you are the one who chooses how to answer them. And so, as you move forward, carry this truth with you. Strength is not found in a life untouched by pain, but in a spirit that refuses to be ruled by it. Let your pain teach you, but do not let it expose you carelessly. Let it deepen you, but not diminish you. Because when you learn to master what once threatened to break you, you step into a power that is quiet, steady, and undeniably your own. There is a hard truth many come to learn too late. Not everyone who listens to you cares for you. Some lean in closer, not out of compassion, but out of curiosity. They do not hold your pain with gentle hands. They weigh it, measure it, and sometimes quietly, they rejoice in it. And if you are not careful, you will find yourself offering your most tender wounds to those who have no intention of helping them heal. It is not weakness to speak your truth, but it is wisdom to choose your audience. There are hearts in this world that will cradle your pain with care, that will sit beside you in silence and not turn your suffering into a story for their own comfort. But there are others who will take what you share and use it as a mirror for your breaking points. They will remember where you hurt the most, not to protect you, but to know where you can be shaken again. You must learn to recognize the difference. Not every ear deserves your story. Not every presence deserves your vulnerability. Your wounds are not performances meant for public display. They are sacred spaces within you that require patience, understanding, and trust. When you begin to guard them with intention, you are not closing yourself off. You are honoring yourself. There is strength in silence, in holding certain battles close to your chest until they have softened, until they no longer bleed at the slightest touch. When you stop announcing every hurt, you give yourself the chance to heal without interference, without judgment, without the quiet energy of those who do not wish you well. And it is not always obvious who celebrates your pain. Sometimes it hides behind polite words, behind nods of agreement, behind a presence that seems supportive but feels heavy. Pay attention to how you feel after you speak. Do you feel lighter, understood, at peace? Or do you feel exposed, uneasy, somehow smaller than before? Your spirit knows the difference, even when your mind tries to ignore it. This is where your power lies, in discernment, in choosing who gets access to your inner world and who does not. You do not owe everyone your honesty, your openness, or your story. Some people are only meant to know your strength, not the journey it took to build it. As you grow, you will find that your circle becomes smaller, but your peace becomes greater. You will speak less, but your words will carry more weight. You will share selectively, not out of fear, but out of self-respect. And in that quiet shift, something remarkable happens. You begin to heal without noise. You begin to rise without announcement. You begin to understand that your wounds were never meant to be displayed for the world's reaction, but to be transformed into wisdom within your own soul. So hold yourself with care. Speak with intention. And remember that your pain is not for everyone to witness, only for those who have proven they know how to honor it. There is a quiet discipline in learning that not every emotion deserves to be seen, heard, or shared. In a world that often urges you to express everything instantly and openly, it takes a certain kind of strength to pause and ask yourself whether every feeling needs a witness. Because the truth is, some emotions are not meant for the crowd, they are meant for your own understanding. Feelings rise within you like waves, some gentle, some overwhelming. Anger, disappointment, frustration, even joy, they all come with their own intensity. But not every wave must crash loudly upon the shore. Some are meant to pass through you quietly, teaching you without demanding attention. When you give every emotion a voice in the wrong space, you risk handing your power to moments that were never meant to define you. There is a difference between honoring your emotions and broadcasting them. Honoring means you sit with them, you listen, you understand what they are trying to tell you. Broadcasting, on the other hand, often comes without reflection. It is immediate, reactive, and sometimes careless. And in that carelessness, your emotions can be misunderstood, dismissed, or even used against you. You begin to realize that your inner world is sacred. It is not a stage for constant display, but a space that deserves privacy and respect. When you treat it that way, you become more grounded, more centered. You no longer feel the need to explain every shift in your mood or justify every feeling that passes through you. Instead, you learn to process first and speak later, if speaking is even necessary at all. There is power in that pause. In that moment between feeling and expression, you reclaim control. You decide whether this emotion deserves to be shared or whether it is simply a passing storm that will lose its force if you allow it to settle. Not everything that is felt needs to be said, and not everything that is said needs to be heard by everyone. This does not mean you suppress yourself or pretend to be unaffected. It means you become selective. You choose safe spaces, trusted people, and the right moments. You understand that your vulnerability is valuable, and because it is valuable, it cannot be given freely to every passing listener. As you grow into this awareness, you will notice a shift within yourself. You will feel less drained, less exposed, less at the mercy of how others respond to your emotions. You will carry yourself with a quiet steadiness, knowing that you are not controlled by every feeling that arises within you. And in that steadiness, you find a deeper kind of freedom, the freedom to feel without being overwhelmed, to experience without being consumed, and to express only when it truly matters. Because not every emotion deserves an audience, but every emotion deserves your understanding. There is a kind of strength that does not announce itself, that does not argue, defend, or try to be understood by everyone in the room. It is the strength of silence, the kind that stands firm without needing to explain its existence. In a world that often rewards the loudest voice, choosing silence can feel unnatural at first, almost as if you are giving something up. But in truth, you are reclaiming something far greater. Silence is not emptiness, it is presence. It is the calm decision to not engage with what does not deserve your energy. When words are thrown carelessly, when misunderstandings swirl, when emotions rise like fire, silence becomes your shield. Not because you have nothing to say, but because you understand that not everything needs a response. There is wisdom in recognizing that some conversations are not seeking clarity, they are seeking reaction. And when you offer silence instead, you deny them the very thing they are reaching for. You step out of the cycle of proving, defending, and explaining yourself to those who have already decided not to understand you. In that moment, your silence speaks louder than any argument ever could. It takes control to remain quiet when you are misunderstood. It takes discipline to hold your tongue when you could easily speak. But that restraint is not weakness, it is mastery. It is the ability to choose peace over pride, clarity over chaos, and self-respect over the need to be right. Silence also gives you something rare, perspective. When you are not rushing to respond, you begin to see things as they truly are. You hear not just the words being said, but the intentions behind them. You notice patterns, behaviors, and truths that would have been lost in the noise of reaction. In that stillness, your understanding deepens, and your responses, when you choose to give them, become more powerful, more intentional, more effective. There is also a quiet dignity in silence. It allows you to walk away from situations that do not honor you without creating a scene. It allows you to protect your peace without needing permission. You do not have to match every tone, answer every accusation, or correct every misunderstanding. Some things are better left unanswered, not because they are true, but because they are unworthy of your attention. And perhaps most importantly, silence teaches you to be comfortable with yourself. Without the constant need to speak or be heard, you begin to find strength in your own presence. You learn that your value does not depend on how well you can defend it to others, but on how firmly you believe it within yourself. So when the moment comes, and it will, where you feel the urge to respond, to explain, to prove, consider the power of silence, not as an absence, but as a choice, a deliberate, steady, and unwavering choice to protect your energy, your dignity, and your peace. Because sometimes the strongest thing you can say is nothing at all. There comes a moment when you begin to understand that your energy is not endless, not something to be poured out carelessly into every place, every conversation, every person who asks for it. It is a quiet, living force within you, shaped by your thoughts, your emotions, your presence, and once you see its value, you can no longer afford to treat it as ordinary. Too often, people give their energy away without noticing. A draining conversation here, an unnecessary argument there, the constant need to prove, to please, to be available, even when the soul is asking for rest. And little by little, without realizing it, they become exhausted, not because life is too heavy, but because they have not learned where to draw the line. Protecting your energy does not mean withdrawing from the world. It means moving through it with awareness. It means recognizing what nourishes you and what quietly depletes you. There are spaces that leave you feeling lighter, clearer, more at peace. And there are others that leave you carrying a weight you cannot quite explain. Wisdom lies in knowing the difference and choosing accordingly. You begin to see that not every invitation deserves your presence. Not every conversation deserves your attention. And not every problem deserves your involvement. Some things are not yours to carry, no matter how strongly they are placed before you. And when you learn to step back from what does not belong to you, you create room for what truly does. There is also a responsibility that comes with this awareness. You must be willing to disappoint others at times. You must be willing to say no without offering long explanations, to step away without guilt, to choose yourself even when it feels unfamiliar. Because protecting your energy will sometimes look like distance, and not everyone will understand it. But understanding is not a requirement for your well-being. And as you begin to guard your energy with intention, you will notice a shift. Your mind becomes clearer, your emotions more steady, your presence more grounded. You are no longer pulled in every direction by the expectations of others. Instead, you move with purpose, giving your energy where it is respected, where it is returned, where it can grow rather than diminish. This does not mean you become closed off or unreachable. It means you become selective. Your kindness remains, your compassion remains, but they are no longer given without care. They are offered with wisdom, with boundaries, with a deep understanding that your energy is a gift, not an obligation. And in that understanding, you begin to live differently. You speak less where it is not valued. You show up less where you are not respected. You invest less where there is no return of sincerity. Not out of bitterness, but out of clarity, because your energy shapes your life. It influences how you feel, how you think, how you move through the world. And when you treat it as sacred, you begin to protect not just your peace, but your purpose. So hold it close. Be mindful of where it goes. And remember that not everything deserves access to something so deeply a part of you. There is a quiet agreement that exists between you and the world, though it is rarely spoken aloud. It is written not in words, but in patterns, formed by what you allow, what you accept, and what you repeatedly walk past without question. Over time, these patterns begin to define how others see you, how they approach you, and how they treat you. The world, in its own way, learns you by watching what you reinforce. If you tolerate disrespect, even in small, subtle forms, it does not remain small for long. What you ignore today grows stronger tomorrow. A careless word, a dismissed feeling, a boundary crossed without consequence. Each one sends a message that this behavior is permitted, not because you said so, but because you allowed it to continue. And slowly, without realizing it, you teach others that your limits are flexible, that your silence can be mistaken for acceptance. But the same truth works in your favor when you begin to stand differently. The moment you choose to no longer entertain what diminishes you, something shifts. It may not be loud or immediate, but it is undeniable. When you correct what is out of line, when you step away from what disrespects you, when you refuse to engage with what disturbs your peace, you begin to rewrite the unspoken agreement. You show, not through words, but through action, that you are no longer available for certain behaviors. And this is where many hesitate, because reinforcing your worth often comes with discomfort. It may mean speaking up when you would rather stay quiet. It may mean walking away when staying feels easier. It may mean disappointing others who have grown comfortable with your silence. But growth has never been found in comfort, and self-respect has never been built on convenience. There is a strength in consistency. It is not enough to set a boundary once and then abandon it the next time it is tested. The world watches for patterns, not moments. When you remain firm, calm but unwavering, you begin to create a new standard. And over time, people either rise to meet that standard or they remove themselves from your space. Both outcomes serve you. You are not here to convince anyone of your value. You are here to live in a way that reflects it. And when your actions align with your self-respect, there is a clarity that follows. You no longer need to argue for better treatment, because you no longer remain where it is absent. It is also important to understand that reinforcing your worth is not about control. It is about alignment. You are not forcing others to behave a certain way. You are choosing what you will and will not accept in your life. That choice, repeated over time, becomes your standard. And that standard becomes your protection. So pay attention to what you reinforce, not just in others, but within yourself. The excuses you make, the limits you ignore, the patterns you continue, all of it shapes your experience. When you raise your standards, you raise the way the world meets you. Because in the end, respect is not something you demand once. It is something you demonstrate consistently through what you allow and what you no longer do. Your struggles are real. They are not imagined, not exaggerated, not something to be brushed aside as if they do not matter. They have weight, they have presence, they have at times brought you to your knees in ways no one else could fully understand. There are nights you have carried quietly, battles you have fought without witness, and moments when simply continuing felt like the greatest victory you could claim. But as real as your struggles are, they are not the loudest truth about you. There is something within you that has outlived every difficult moment you have faced, something that did not break, even when it bent, something that continued forward, even when the path was unclear and the weight felt unbearable. That something is your resilience, and it deserves a voice stronger than the pain that tried to silence it. It is easy sometimes to become wrapped in what has gone wrong. The mind revisits it, replays it, gives it space to grow until it feels larger than everything else. And before you realize it, your struggles begin to speak for you. They shape how you see yourself, how you carry yourself, how you expect the world to meet you. But you must be careful not to let hardship become your identity. You are not just what you have endured. You are also what you have overcome, what you have learned, and what you have chosen to become in spite of it all. Every time you stood back up, every time you held yourself together when it would have been easier to fall apart, every time you kept going without applause or recognition, you were building something stronger than the struggle itself. Resilience does not always look dramatic. It is not always a grand moment of triumph or a visible display of strength. Often, it is quiet. It is choosing to try again when doubt is present. It is showing up when motivation is gone. It is holding on to your direction even when the road feels long and uncertain. It is found in the steady decision to continue again and again without needing the world to notice. And yet, it must become louder, not in noise, but in presence. Let your resilience be seen in how you carry yourself, in the way you speak, the way you respond, the way you move through challenges without surrendering your sense of self. Let it shape your actions more than your struggles shape your fears. Because when resilience becomes your leading force, your struggles lose their power to define you. This does not mean you ignore what you have been through. It means you place it where it belongs, in your past, as a chapter, not the entire story. You acknowledge it, you learn from it, but you do not allow it to overshadow the strength you have built because of it. There is a quiet transformation that happens when resilience becomes louder than struggle. You begin to see yourself differently, not as someone who is constantly burdened, but as someone who is capable, steady, and unshaken in ways that matter. The challenges may still come, but they no longer introduce themselves as something you cannot handle. Because deep down, you already know you have faced difficulty before, and you are still here. So let your struggles be real, but do not let them be dominant. Let your resilience rise, steady and undeniable, until it becomes the voice that guides you forward. Not because life has become easier, but because you have become stronger than what once tried to stop you. There is a quiet kind of strength that does not seek attention, does not chase validation, and does not feel the need to prove itself in the presence of others. It lives in the choices you make when no one is watching, in the restraint you show when you could easily react, and in the dignity you carry when the situation invites you to abandon it. In those moments when pride tempts you to perform and emotions urge you to respond loudly, you are faced with a deeper decision, whether to display your power or to protect your peace. To choose display is to react in ways that are visible, immediate, and often driven by the need to be seen or understood. It can feel satisfying in the moment to express everything without filter, to let the world witness your frustration, your anger, your hurt. But display is fleeting. It may release pressure temporarily, yet it often leaves behind consequences that are harder to manage. Words spoken without restraint cannot be taken back, and actions driven by impulse can linger long after the moment has passed. Dignity, on the other hand, asks something different of you. It asks you to pause, to rise above the urge to match energy with energy, to respond rather than react, to carry yourself in a way that reflects self-respect, even when circumstances challenge it. Dignity is not about suppressing what you feel. It is about expressing it with awareness, with intention, and with control. There is strength in not proving your point to those who are not willing to understand it. There is strength in walking away from conflict that does not serve your growth. There is strength in maintaining composure when others expect you to lose it. These choices may not always be noticed by the world, but they are deeply felt within you. Each time you choose dignity, you reinforce your own sense of worth. You remind yourself that your behavior is not dictated by external pressure, but guided by internal principles. Over time, these small, consistent decisions begin to shape your character. You become someone who is not easily shaken, not easily drawn into unnecessary conflict, not easily influenced by the reactions of others. Your presence begins to carry a quiet authority, not because you demand it, but because you embody it. And in that embodiment, something powerful unfolds. People begin to respond to you differently, not because you are louder, but because you are steadier, not because you are more expressive, but because you are more grounded. Dignity commands respect in a way that display often cannot, because it reflects a deeper understanding of self. Choosing dignity does not mean you remain silent in all situations, nor does it mean you avoid expressing your truth. It means you do so in a way that aligns with who you are and what you stand for. It means you do not allow momentary emotions to override long-term self-respect. So when faced with the choice between reacting and responding, between proving and preserving, between display and dignity, remember that strength is not always in being seen. Sometimes the greatest strength lies in how quietly, how firmly, and how respectfully you choose to carry yourself through it all. There is a stage in life where what you once called weakness begins to reveal itself as something far more meaningful. It is in the moments when you feel uncertain, when your confidence wavers, when the ground beneath you no longer feels steady, that you are quietly being introduced to a deeper kind of strength. Not the kind that shouts, not the kind that dominates, but the kind that endures. To feel overwhelmed does not mean you are incapable. To question yourself does not mean you are lacking. These are the early signs of awareness, the first steps toward understanding your own limits, your own emotions, your own capacity to grow. In truth, what you experience as weakness is often the beginning of transformation. It is the space where old patterns begin to loosen and new strength begins to take shape. Standing unshaken is not something that happens overnight. It is learned slowly through moments that test your patience, your resolve, and your ability to remain centered when everything around you feels unstable. At first, you may stumble. You may react in ways you later question. You may feel the weight of doubt more heavily than you would like. But each of these moments carries within it a lesson, an opportunity to respond differently the next time. Over time, you begin to notice subtle changes. Situations that once unsettled you no longer have the same effect. Words that once lingered in your mind begin to lose their grip. You become more aware of your thoughts, more intentional with your reactions, more grounded in your sense of self. This is not because the world has become easier, but because you have become more resilient in facing it. Learning to stand unshaken also means learning to trust yourself, To trust that even when you feel uncertain, you are capable of finding your balance again. To trust that discomfort is not a signal to retreat, but often a sign that you are stepping beyond what is familiar and into what is necessary for your growth. Each challenge becomes less of a threat and more of a teacher. There is also a quiet confidence that develops along the way. It does not come from having all the answers, but from knowing that you can navigate the unknown without losing yourself in it. You stop relying on external reassurance as much because you begin to recognize the stability that is forming within you. That stability becomes your anchor, allowing you to move through change without being easily shaken. So, what once felt like weakness begins to transform into something else entirely. It becomes patience, it becomes awareness, it becomes resilience taking root in your character. And in that process, you realize that you were never truly weak. You were simply in the process of becoming stronger in ways that are not always immediately visible. And when you finally look back, you understand that the moments that once unsettled you were never meant to break you. They were meant to teach you how to stand, how to hold your ground, and how to remain unshaken, even when life itself refuses to be still.